All right. Gotta get all my tech ready. Because did I plan for any of this? Absolutely not. We don't plan in advance, apparently. We just wing it. All right. Gotta get all my tech ready. Audio is working good. That's great. Did I plan for any of this? Absolutely not. And here we go over here for the TikTok. Okay. I do not have a formal plan for any of the things that I'm talking about, but formal meaning like I don't have this like really fleshed out outline or anything like that. But I did want to come on here and talk about it, especially as I'm making updates to the resources and thinking about updates to add. I've been talking a lot about language learning confidence lately. And so I really wanted to kind of do a dive into language learning confidence. So how to build that unshakable confidence and what does it really mean? Because one of the things that I've noticed as a language learning myself, as a polyglot, as a language coach, is that when your confidence is not there, you're not going to be able to do any of the things you want to do in the languages that you're learning. And hello over on TikTok. It is so far away from me that I actually can't see any names, but hello. Let me see if I can fix it. 1 second. There we go. Now I can see things a little bit better. Perfect. Liz, thank you. Hello. So what I figured I could do is, obviously I'm going to be working on the updates to the course right now. Like I'm still working on the worksheets. And there's going to be worksheets, checklists, the action plan that's like a template, the confidence tracker, and then the confidence diagnostic. So it's like, if you don't even know where to start with all these tools and resources that I'm sharing with you, ask yourself these questions and it's going to break it down for you. But sometimes we don't even realize like what about confidence is impacting our language studies, right? So like, yes, even with myself, I'll use myself and some of my students as an example. Like actually had a situation recently with speaking French where I froze. I like choked up, could not get a single word out. And then afterwards I had all these things to say, right? I had all the sentences that I could get out and all the things, but in the moment was not there. Why? Because my confidence in French is not as strong as my confidence in, let's say, Spanish or in Japanese. And there's a lot of different things that kind of impact our confidence. I usually talk about like 3 different things that needs to happen, but the core focus is trust. When we are not confident in ourselves as language learners, it's because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our skills. We don't trust our choices. We don't trust our vision. So the things that we're setting to do in our language studies, we don't trust that it's actually going to get us from point A to point B, or the decisions that we're making in our language studies. We don't feel like those choices matter or those choices are working because sometimes, for example, we're making a choice that's very different than what other people are doing. We're making a choice that feels good to us, but society is telling us like, why are you for example, why are you playing video games to learn languages? Why are you focused just on reading and you're not actually practicing your speaking? A lot of people that I actually work with, their main priority is not actually speaking. And so like speaking's in there, but it's not like, the most important thing. It's probably like 3rd on the list or 5th on the list. And so we don't really trust the choices that we're making, or you have too many choices and you're not sure of what to do, in this era of there's so many tools and resources and apps and textbooks and classes and teachers for many of the languages that we're learning. You're like, well, which one am I supposed to do? I don't know. And that indecision can chip away at our confidence or our lack of confidence, because you don't trust that the decision that you are going to make is going to be good enough. And so you look online, you go to TikTok, you go to YouTube, you go to Instagram, you go to Facebook, and you're looking for someone else to tell you. And you might even be asking the questions like, okay, which app should I use for my language studies? What is the best resource for learning languages? What gets me the fastest amount of progress? What is the best way to improve my vocabulary? Should I use cards or not use flashcards? Should I, how should I improve my speaking if I don't have someone to speak with? We're also trying to find like loopholes, ways around the thing, right? When ultimately, in order to improve the thing, you have to do the thing. There are some things you can do in the long run, and I talk a little bit about this in my sentence building pro course, where I have tons of like introvert friendly strategies. And introvert meaning about our energy levels, not introvert meaning like shy or socially anxious. I feel like you can be an introvert and shy, an introvert and socially anxious, but that is not what an introvert is and how I define it and how a lot of the people I work with define it. And so I have a lot of strategies on how can you boost your speaking, for example, without losing tons of energy peopling, right? And then when you build that confidence to be able to practice with someone, how are you going to do that and not burn yourself out? Because it's a completely different experience for us as introverts, or even like a different experience for us as perfectionists than it is for someone who is not a perfectionist and is not an introvert. So, you don't really trust the choices that you're making, or you don't really trust your skill. Like you believe that the choices you're making are correct. You believe in the vision you have for your language studies, that you're trying to go from point A to point B. You believe wholeheartedly that you can do the thing. Because if you don't believe that you can, then you can't. It's just not going to happen. So you believe in that, but you don't believe in your skills. Maybe you've been practicing for a little bit or a lot, and you freeze up when you're in front of people. You're like, wait, I don't remember any vocabulary anymore. I don't know how to do this. Hello, I'm seeing people on the YouTube side as well. Hello. Yeah, and then there's also this, I'm seeing in the chat right now, there's also this sort of lack of trust or confusion, I will say, in trying to do the same thing for every language. Because I see you're saying flashcards help with Mandarin, but not with Russian or French. And especially for those of us learning multiple languages, we feel like if we're using this strategy for one language, we have to use it for all of them. And if it doesn't work for one of them, then we suck and we're never going to be able to do it. When in reality, and this is a conversation I've actually had with fellow polyglots and probably also on like the Gladly Global lives that we have been doing. Like we almost adopt a different version of our personality when we're using and practicing in another language. And, there are different cultural influences that impact us and different things that we're learning. We are a different version of ourselves because maybe you started learning Korean in middle school and then you started learning Spanish in college and, Russian 10 years after college. Like wherever you are in your journey, you were a different person then. And so it's okay that the strategies that you used at one point are not ones that you use now, that things are shifting and changing. I think when we talked over the weekend about like the September blues, we were talking about being like water. That was what Ray was bringing up. You want to be like water, and water is water no matter what form it takes, whether it's in the clouds or it's in, the rivers that are flowing, whether it's the ice or, the humidity in the air, it is still water. And so one of the things that I am really passionate about, and the reason why I was like, you know what, I've been talking about this for a while, let me just make the thing. I really want to help people build that confidence, because once you're confident enough to practice and to use what you're learning, the skill is going to build, you're going to make progress, you're going to see that progress, and then you're going to be able to actually use the languages that you're learning. But when you don't have that level of confidence, you're going to make excuses, you're going to procrastinate, you're going to feel like you're not good enough, you're going to feel like nothing is working, you're going to try to find a shortcut or a cheat code or a hack to get you there faster and better and stronger. You're going to watch tons of people who are practicing languages on social media who are showing off their skills, whether it's for them or for their audiences. And it's going to make you feel worse about your skills, especially when they tell you how long they've been studying, how long they study in a day, how often they study, what they're using. And you start to compare yourself to that. You're like, well, I don't study 3 hours a day. Should I be studying 3 hours a day? Is that the trick? To study more? No, it's not the trick. but we think that. Or we might say, I'm not using flashcards. Maybe I should start, but I've tried 17 times. It does not work for me. Well, let me just try it one more time. If it hasn't worked for you and you've tried all the things, it is okay to let it go. But I think that lack of confidence causes us to try to fix the symptoms and not the root cause. And so this was actually a longer conversation over the course of 3 workshops that I did sometime last year. It was called Languaging with Confidence. And I actually took all of those recordings and sort of chopped them up. And I put them into a course that was specifically on the key components of that confidence building. Because there was confidence. We talked about how to build confidence in the workshops, but it was even more than confidence. We talked about how to build your study plan. We talked about how to build your study schedule and your routine. And I didn't want to clog the focus of this course by also talking about a plan, a schedule, and a routine, because those are completely different things. And I feel like once you have the confidence to go on your path for learning languages, you can do that. You can build that plan, that schedule, and that routine. But until then, let's start here. And so I'm going to be referencing some of the slides that I did from then. And also I have notes on my Notion, because I am neck deep in I'm literally looking at it on my computer right now, because I have the gallery view of all the worksheets. I made the little headers and everything. And I was diving back into the content again, because I was like, what are some new insights I have? It was probably a year and a half ago, honestly, if not longer. And so I was just like, what are some new insights I have about the content that I taught at that time, right? Are there any new insights that I have, any new updates that I would add to this information? And so some of the things that came up, I'm trying to pull it up right now from the recording sheet, because ultimately I think I want to re-record everything, but for right now I think it works. So the structure of this course is essentially, we dive first into what does it mean to build your confidence? Kind of what I talked about right now. What are the 3 different ways that we build our confidence? We build it with trust in our vision and our skills and in our choices. I talk a little bit more about what that means. And then I do a little bit of a pulse check. So what is the core cause of your lack of confidence? And there are a few different reasons why we don't have the confidence to move forward in our language studies. I give 3 reminders, because I'm always about mindset first, and then we dive into the work. And, the core focus of those reminders is 1, stop being afraid of failure. Failure is a topic that, this is now a side note, but failure is a topic that I talk about so much. I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, but I talk about it so much that for my master's, I guess you could call it a dissertation, although the school that I went to is a little bit different. I did a whole presentation on failure and the fear of failure. I dove deep into it for not only myself, but for the sake of that program for teaching. So I think about failure a lot. I am a perfectionist. I think about failure all the time, and I work very hard to manage how I react to failure. Because one of the things that I say, it's not about avoiding failure. We're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. But it's about, what do you do when that happens? When you fail, how are you going to react? Are you going to avoid your studies forever? Are you going to give up and swear you're never going to learn languages again? Or are you going to say, okay, I failed. What about this was a failure? What about this was a mistake? Can I ask for help? Can I get feedback? Can I try again? Maybe the first try just wasn't good enough. And I know I'll give an example of times where you don't necessarily need feedback. You just need to try again. One of the things that frustrates me, and I have to manage my level of frustration, the level of frustration that I can handle, is when I'm using a language learning app and the very first couple questions I make a mistake on, or I spell something wrong because I was rushing, right? Pisses me off. And I just want to be like, you know what? Done. We're not learning languages anymore. But I have to recognize, you've just made a mistake. That happens. That's how we learn, And when you actually make that mistake, and then look back at like previous mistakes that you made or previous experiences that you've had to be like, oh, I'm not making that mistake anymore. Like, I'm finally recognizing this one letter in the Korean alphabet or in the Russian alphabet. That is wild. And I see right now you're saying failure is kind of cool and it can be, but it is a mindset shift that has to happen. It is not an instinctual thing to be comfortable with failure, because I think in many different cultures and many different societies, we look at failure as a horrible thing, a thing to avoid, a thing to never experience. We don't want to fail. We don't want to be a failure. We don't want to be called a failure. But the reality is it's going to happen anyway. And especially with language learning, because something else that I've talked about quite a bit is that when we're learning languages, so often I see like a lot of the people that I work with, and also like myself, because most of the stories that I tell that are from like my students and my clients are also just like mirrors of me. And a lot of times when we're diving into learning languages, we often feel this lack of confidence because we feel like we should be farther ahead than we are. So because we're an adult, we feel like we should be talking and speaking and using the language like an adult. If not immediately, then quickly, because we have adult understanding of language and how to use it, right? We talk in our native language, we write and use it every single day. But the truth of that is, and I tend to compare it to like a video game. So if you're not a gamer, excuse me, but it makes sense. When we join in like, let's say a Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy is a very long franchise of games. It's up to like what, 15, 16 now, 17. And so every time you join a Final Fantasy game, the premise is generally the same. The game mechanics are generally the same. They add in a lot of really cool and new things. But there's magic. There's like the different what's it called? Like the mage and I can't remember the names of any of it. But you have these like classes. That's what it's called. You have these different classes. You know how that works. And also you've played video games before, so you know how to like use a controller or use your keyboard and mouse. But this is a new game. The game does not start you from the middle of the game just because you know how to play Final Fantasy. It starts you from the very beginning of the game. But you come into that experience with the knowledge of playing previous Final Fantasies or playing previous RPG games or just playing games in general. You come with that knowledge. But you still start from square one. And so when we're learning a language, even if you've learned a similar language, you're learning French and you used to learn Spanish, or you have learned Korean and now you're learning Japanese, or you've just learned a language, period, and the new one has nothing to do with the one that you're currently learning. You come with that experience of learning those languages, but the new language is new. You are starting as a beginner, and the beginner is a baby, right? A child who is babbling sounds to mimic the sounds of the language that they hear around them, is then using individual words and pointing and gesturing to get their point across, is completing sentences that are, or is creating sentences that are incomplete to get their point across, and someone is filling in the blanks or, saying back the sentence in a better way so it makes more, grammatical sense or whatever it might be. And there are levels to that. And I feel like as adults, we want to accelerate that process, and in a way that is detrimental, in a way that is harmful to us, to our mental health, to our confidence. And so those reminders I feel are really important before you dive into the actual content of the course. We talk about stop being afraid of failure, stop trying to be perfect, stop trying to be fast. If you are someone who wants to work with me or is like in my sphere, in my side of the internet, we are not people who are trying to learn languages fast. We are trying to learn languages for the long term, and there's maintenance involved. And so a lot of people forget that it's not just about learning the language, it's about maintaining the skills that you've learned. And then what I do in this course, and I'm actually developing the like actual formula of the Polyglot Confidence formula, is I share 10 different ideas for boosting your confidence and building that unshakable confidence. And I also show you how to use them in combination. And so the combination, essentially, this is a little sneak peek. Um, but the confidence is essentially like, what is the foundation? What is the foundation is like the mindset. So what mindset are you crafting for your language studies? Hello, Renee. Nice to see you over on TikTok. So what is the way that you're building your foundation for your confidence, the mindset? What is like the biggest thing that's impacting your confidence in terms of what you think about yourself and your abilities and your skills? And then we talk about like the reinforcement. So how do you start to build that confidence in a way that works for you? And we talk about some things that I share all the time, like focusing on your guiding principles, which is like your why for learning languages. And then the final step is the confidence in action. So this is like, now that you've started to build your confidence, how do you maintain it and improve it even more? What are some different ways that you can not just say you're going to improve your skills and say you're going to build your confidence, but actually do the thing? And I give some key strategies that you can choose from. And then essentially the formula of it is that you choose one of the three from each of those categories. So one thing for mindset, one thing for the catalyst of building your confidence, one thing for the confidence in action. You choose one for each of those categories, and that's your action plan. And then you're starting to do that on a regular basis. You make it your habit of building your confidence so that you're not just studying, because especially for introverts, many of us, studying is a safe space, especially studying alone or studying with our group of friends. It's a safe space. We get to sit down with a book or sit down with a podcast. We're not necessarily using it in a way that makes us uncomfortable, although language learning is going to be uncomfortable. We just don't want that, you know? And so this helps you to build up the confidence to dip your toes into being uncomfortable, or to dive in head first if you're the kind of person who's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And I'm really excited to bring this to people. So what's happening right now, what is currently available is the entire workshop, the entire, like, I think it's only 43 minutes. So like on the page, I actually say less than 60 minutes, and I've done that. And what I'm working on right now are the worksheets. And so what you get in this sort of process of building your confidence are not just like those lessons, but I was going to say what I'm imagining, but it's not imagined. It's literally in my plans right here. Is the worksheets to help you after each of those lessons unpack what is being talked about. So especially with mindset, we do mindset resets all the time in Fluency Mastery Lab. And so I want to give a little bit of a taste of what that's like to really dive into the mindset part first, a part that many people overlook or skip because they're ready to dive into the things. The overall checklist of like, where should you go in this process? The confidence tracker, because one of the things that I do in most, if not all of the trackers that I create, and I'm looking at this one right now, is I usually leave a section that is like, what was your level of confidence? What was your level of consistency? What was your level of motivation? Those are three parts of tracking that I don't see many people doing. Although the person that emphasizes for me, like didn't teach it to me, but emphasized it in our work, was like, oh, this is a game changer. And then I started to use it and started to have my own ideas about it. So anytime I'm tracking anything in my language studies, I usually always put level of confidence, level of consistency, and level of motivation. Because if I like don't feel really confident about my reading skills that week or that day or that month, I look to those three things. How was my confidence? Was it high or low? You know, I do it on a scale of like 5 stars. What about my level of motivation? How motivated was I to get it done? Does that mean that the work is boring? Does that mean that the work was not important? Like it wasn't connected to my guiding principle, my why for learning languages? So I tend to do that, and that's what I usually recommend for all the people I work with. And the biggest thing that I'm excited about, I love diagnostics. I love like flow charts and like ask yourself this question. If yes, go this way. And if no, go that. Like I love those. I try to make as many of them as I can. And I have like brainstormed versions of those. And so this one for the course is specifically, you know, aligned with the course to help you figure out what's impacting your confidence the most, because there's a lot of ideas that I'm sharing. There's a lot of strategies that I'm sharing here. And yes, you could absolutely dive into it and go through every lesson. The lessons are like max 10 minutes. Most of them are like 2 to 3, maybe 4 minutes. And you could definitely just watch all of them, watch it, complete some work, watch it, complete some work. But I also recognize that the work that I do is also for people who are busy, who are short on time, who sometimes and oftentimes have low energy, but still want to make and see more progress. And so I want to create this as a way to help you figure out, what do I really need to focus on? If I can't do all the things, how much of this can I actually do? What can I spend my time and energy on? And so it's asking you questions like, what's impacting, or like, do you often feel like afraid of making mistakes? And if so, you're going to go to question 2. And if not, you're going to go to question 3. Do you feel like you are afraid of failure or perfectionism? And I'm going to like break this down even more. But essentially, it asks you these questions. You give a yes or a no. And then if you get to a certain point in this flow chart, it's going to say, oh, focus on this section of the formula. You need to fill this section in with one of these 3 tools. Or it's going to literally say, actually, just go straight to this lesson. Don't even worry about it. Like, this is the lesson you need directly. And I am very excited to put this into action, because I'm actually going to make it as a survey. Not a survey meaning that I'm taking information from people, but I actually have one of these in Fluency Mastery Lab, where it essentially asks members, do you have a study plan? Do you have a study schedule? Have you chosen your focus languages and your maintenance languages? Because if they say yes or no to that, it directs them to a lesson inside of our membership space to like focus on. And I was like, I want this, but on a smaller scale. So that's the like flow chart that I have outlined, and I just need to like design. And then we have the checklist, and the checklist is walking you through like, what do you need to actually do? So those 3 areas of the formula, the mindset, the catalyst, and the actionable habits that you're building over time. Which one of those areas are you focusing on? Or maybe you're someone who's like, every single thing that you said that impacts someone, or that can impact someone's confidence, is what I'm dealing with right now. Right? And every single struggle that you just list, like all of it, all the different reminders you gave, I needed every single one. Then you might have to go through all 3 of them rather than just one area. And I see over here on the TikTok chat, thank you, because as a person who has ADHD and is dyslexic, struggle is real. I can imagine. I can absolutely imagine that it's difficult. And I think that it's better now. I will say more people are being more open about their experiences now. But I know when I first started learning languages and just dabbling, it was 2008. And there wasn't a lot of talk about different learning styles. It was just, you learn languages by downloading Anki, using flashcards, doing like Pimsleur or Duolingo, and you just memorize. That's it. And then all these other strategies started to emerge or re-emerge, speaking from day one, all Japanese all the time, and then versions of that, but for other languages. And now we're in a place where there's so much information about how to learn that it can be really overwhelming. And again, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, that overwhelm can impact your confidence because you're not trusting in the choices that you're making for yourself in your language studies. And so if nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this conversation that we're having right now, I hope that you know that even just with like the free stuff that I share, so like the videos on my YouTube channel, my TikToks and Reels, and my blog posts, like even if you just dive into that, I share a lot about different ways to build your confidence, to build your motivation, and to get you from where you are right now a little bit closer to where you want to be. Definitely dive into that. But if you are ready to build that unshakable confidence in your language studies, then you definitely want to grab my course. It is just $9, only $9. It is not going to raise from $9. That's it. That's what it is. And you're getting all of these things plus any future updates. So you get all of the ongoing updates. And what I like to do, especially with new resources like this, is I like to poll the people who are like the first buyers of it to really get that immediate feedback. Because if you are like, hey, I would love to have this thing in it. Or like, how do I do this? Like a question you might ask might end up being in like a deeper dive section of this course. Or you might suggest something and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And it's within the scope of the course. Let's do that. And I'm going to make that resource added in. You get that for free. You get that as, you know, being a part of the group that has this resource. And so if you are someone who's ready to build that unshakable confidence, because building that confidence is going to help you master the languages that you're learning. It's going to help you go from frustrated to fluent in multiple languages, or one, if you're deciding to learn one language. It is going to help you, guaranteed, because when you're not confident, you avoid the things that you're trying to do. You avoid your language studies, you make excuses, you say you're going to do it, and you get envious and jealous of other people. You scroll through Instagram and TikTok and maybe Tumblr if you're still on Tumblr and you're just looking at all the people who are making progress while you're just sitting there watching them make progress. But when you're feeling more confident, you kind of almost have tunnel vision. You watch people for inspiration, but you kind of have that tunnel vision of, here's my goal, I'm in the zone, let's do it. And you're also really well equipped to celebrate your wins. Like literally celebrating your wins is actually a conversation I'm having with members next week, the 17th. I do mindset resets pretty often. And so they voted on the next mindset reset being on how to celebrate your wins. And members specifically said, like on a call, on one of our accountability calls, was like, I need help celebrating my success. I need help celebrating when I am winning, when I am doing well in my language studies, because I tend to focus too much on the negatives. And oftentimes that's because of confidence. And this is not me saying like, oh yeah, I'm super confident in everything that I do. No, I'm speaking to you. I'm coming to you as someone who actively uses these strategies in my own language studies to help me maintain the confidence that I have, or when I hit a setback, I have a failure, I make a mistake, how to rebuild it. Right? So this isn't me sharing these strategies that I have never used, that I found from like a Wikipedia page and then market it off to people to be like, hey, look at me, I'm an expert. But literally, and this is, if you weren't here in the beginning of this conversation, these strategies are ones that I shared probably, I don't think it was last year. No, I think it was the year before last. I think it was 2022. Yeah, 2022, I believe, is when I had a workshop series called Languaging with Confidence. And so we dove deep for 3 weeks. Every Friday we met and we talked about how to build your confidence. And so the bulk of what I share here is from those workshops. I'm actually taking those workshops, cutting it up to pull out the most important pieces of it, because we also talked about things like how to create your study schedule, how to create your study plan, how to create your study routine. And those things are not really applicable or necessary for the goal of helping you build your confidence. Those are like next step, or like in the process of building your confidence, you're also doing this, but it's a separate goal. And so like I said, I'm very excited to be bringing this to people. I'm very excited to continue working on it. And I think the message at the top of the course is like, everything's going to be finalized by the 16th, but the actual workshop is there. Like you can watch all of the lessons right now. It's just not broken up into bite-sized pieces. I literally, and this is not before this live stream, I was really determined to get those videos downloaded. I was going piece by piece. They're already separated on Descript, because that's where I edit. And then my computer blue screened. It was like, no, actually, you're not going to download anything right now. So I'm like, let me just live stream instead. Let me just go live. Let me talk about it. Let me share how excited I am about this course. And then I'll go back to it. And in the process of me downloading the videos, I'm going to edit the Notion worksheets. I'll eventually get to the Google Doc versions of the worksheets, because I like to the teacher in me likes to make sure that things are accessible, that there's multiple modes and ways of accessing the information. So by the 16th is when I will have everything done, but you can dive into it right now and at least look at the lessons, watch them, dive into them, but more of the the structure of the formulas is probably going to be there tonight-ish, tomorrow. Like after this live stream, I am going to be adding in those formulas in that lesson right there, because a lot of these are going to be text-based lessons first, and then I'll add in the videos afterwards. But again, when you join, you also get ongoing access, which means any and every future update that I make to this course, you get access to that as well. And so I really hope that this conversation was helpful, and even just giving you the peace of mind of telling yourself it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to fail, it's okay to not do everything perfectly. It is okay to not feel confident right now in your language studies, but you're going to work on it. And you're going to follow the strategies. Again, whether you watch my free content or you join us in the course, again, it's only $9 and it will stay $9. Whether you join us in either option, you're going to work on actively building your confidence, because when your confidence is strong, the other things are going to be easier to start, continue, maintain, finish, because you are confident in your skills that you're building, you're confident in the choices that you're making, and you're confident in your vision for your language studies, what it is you're trying to achieve, why you're doing this in the first place. We want to get those things solid so that while you're building your skills, you are not wavering in what you're doing or routine wandering and kind of going all over the place on what you're doing and how you're doing it. We want to make sure that the choices that you're making, you're not backing, retracting that decision because of new information, but you're sticking to it, or you're adjusting because that information makes sense. Like you're being really strategic with the choices that you're making, and you know why you're making those choices. Something that we just talked about again today in our accountability call was about, I say this all the time, there's a lot of things I say a lot, but this is one of them, that the plan that we make in theory doesn't always work in practice, and that is okay. But you're confident in the choices that you're making in theory to see them through in practice. And you're also confident in, like I said, your vision and why you're going on this language learning journey in the first place, why you're learning multiple languages or one language in the first place, why you're deciding to, improve and be able to speak to other people, why you're focused on understanding drama or music or TV shows. You are confident in that vision that you have for your language studies. And so this is a really short live. And like I said, I did not have it all planned. I just was like, let me have my iPad out so I can look at some of the slides. And then lo and behold, it didn't even log in for me. And then I was like, let me have my Notion up so I can kind of preview some of the resources that are going to be in the course. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm so glad that you like the vibe of this live, because like I said, it was not planned at all. And my goal, and if I say it out loud, then that means that I'm committing. My goal is that if I don't have a video coming out on Wednesdays, then I'm most likely going to be showing up live, and I am going to do my best, managing my energy, managing my expectations for myself, do my best to have something for you over on the YouTube channel. So if you're, TikTok people, over on the YouTube channel every Wednesday. So if you don't want to miss out on those live streams or my videos that are coming out, make sure to subscribe to my channel over there as well, the Polyglot Fox. And with that, this is the end. Also, again, on TikTok, you can see it above my head, so go check out the course. If you're not on TikTok, you see nothing but me, but in the description of this live, you'll see the link to the course and a little bit about what to expect there, and you can just look at the full preview. And if you have any questions about it, you can message me on TikTok. You can message me over on Instagram. I am more than happy to answer any questions you have about the course or just about language learning in general. And I think that's it for everything. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I appreciate the likes over on TikTok and the conversation that's been happening over on YouTube. Don't forget to give my YouTube live a thumbs up so that more people can see all of my content in all of the places. It really helps me out a lot. And I think I smell food, so it's time to eat. I'm definitely gonna go eat, but thank you. I'm gonna say goodbye to my YouTube people first. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. If not